What's up, everybody? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me and get this tweeted out for everybody. All right, sweet. While we wait for people to trickle in, let me know what you're drinking. I drove all over downtown Denver to get a Coors Tall Boy. Went to 2 different 7-Elevens because we were not, I repeat, not going to have another hops with pop with no hops. I refuse to let that happen. All right, just tweeted it out. We'll give it a minute or so for people to trickle in, and then we'll get going. What's everybody drinking? I know Denver has great breweries, all right? We were in a pinch, and I got what I could get. Pain punch? I don't know what a pain punch is. I think that's a bit. Taking as many shots of Tito's as Herbert took in the pocket today. That would be 10 shots of Tito's. That's quite a lot of shots of Tito's. But, do you? Listen, people, I will not hear Coors slander in the chat, okay? A beer is a beer. A beer is better than no beer. That's where we're at. All right, we got some first-timers in the chat. All right, I think we've given enough time here. So we'll do a quick recap. I'll go through my takeaways, and then we'll just hop right into questions. I know that you all generally don't like these post-game hops with pop after a loss to drag on. So we'll get done with our business and we'll get out of here so everyone can move on with their lives. Before we hop into that, our $1 a month Black Friday deal ends tomorrow. So this is your last shot to get in to The Athletic at $1 a month for an entire year. It's the best deal that we do all year. So if you are not subscribed to The Athletic, click the link in the description. You'll get access, of course, to my post-game takeaways, which just posted. And then you'll also have access to all my Chargers content. People in the chat that are subscribed can let you know what that's all about. But it's a lot of content. I believe it's the best Chargers content on the internet. And the people in the chat can tell you that it is worth paying for. So Chargers lose to the Broncos 28-13. Very underwhelming performance from all facets of the team. A big game for the Chargers, right? They come into this game 2-0 in the division. They're 6-4. With the Chiefs on a bye week, a win here would have tied them for first place, technically put them in first place because they have a better division record, beat the Chiefs, obviously, in week 3. They come into Denver and they lay an egg. They go down 14-0 early. The offense is struggling, 2 3-and-outs. They let Teddy Bridgewater run for an 11-yard touchdown. Joey Bosa loses contain there. Brandon Staley said after the game he thought there was a hold. I rewatched it. Tough to see on the TV tape. But the effort on the edge from Kaiser White, from Nasir Adderley, especially from Devon Campbell, not good enough. Bridgewater scores. Another touchdown gives the Broncos a 14-0 lead. A couple weird plays on that drive, right? Derwin James comes free on a blitz, obliterates Teddy Bridgewater. It looks like a fumble. They rule it an incomplete pass. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, Justin Herbert's attempt in week 1 against Washington is ruled a fumble. If that's a fumble, then the Bridgewater play has to be a fumble. They ruled an incomplete pass. The contact negates any possible intentional grounding. Later in that drive, Joey Bosa has a strip sack, fumble, goes right to Tim Patrick for a first down. That's just an incredibly unlucky play. The Chargers have 13 forced fumbles this season, tied for 3rd in the league. They've only recovered 5 of them. Their 38.5% recovery rate ranks 28th in the league. So when people talk about fumble luck, that's what they're talking about. So probably should have gotten off the field on that drive. They don't. That leads to a touchdown, 3rd and goal from the 9. Javonte Williams runs up the middle. It was kind of a weird play call. They were clearly trying to defend against the pass. They had the 2 guards and the center uncovered. Only 1 linebacker in the box. And Williams runs untouched for a touchdown. I thought the Chargers from that point on played better in the middle part of the game. They had a nice drive there into Broncos territory. Justin hits Keenan Allen on a 3rd and 15, but they turn it over on downs. I thought it was a good decision mathematically. The win probability model said it was a good decision. But if you go rewatch it, Justin is locked in on Keenan on the little slant in route. But Austin Eckler was wide open in the flat. Didn't get to that part of the progression, threw to Keenan, incomplete turnover on downs. Chargers D stepped up here. They forced a 3 and out, another punt from the Chargers. Then Derwin came up with that incredible interception. Bridgewater leaves the game after the hit from Derwin James that we just talked about. So Drew Lock is in the game. He inexplicably throws a ball on 2nd and 9. And Derwin makes an incredible play, picks it off. I thought Derwin James had an all-pro game. He was sensational today, I should say. Chargers respond with a touchdown drive. They got momentum going into the half, and then they come out and they drive the ball down the field on the opening drive there, and the protection breaks down. The protection was horrific today. I mean, it looked like, the Chargers' offensive lines of the past 2 seasons. Justin Herbert was under duress all game. I mean, he got hit 10 times. So the pressure numbers are going to be astronomical. He got sacked 3 times. This drive gets derailed when Senio Kelemete, starting at left guard in place of Matt Filer, who was out, he gets beat clean for a sack there. That leads to, a 5-yard loss, turns into a 52-yard field goal that Dustin Hopkins absolutely shanks. But the defense continues to play well. They force another 3 and out. Again, the Chargers offense is moving the ball a little bit better than they were early in the game. They drive deep into Broncos territory. They have a 3rd and 9 from inside the red zone. Austin Eckler gets free on a screen, but they rule it ineligible man downfield. Eckler was late getting out into the flat on the screen pattern because there's a defensive lineman in the way, screwed up the timing of the play. The offensive linemen were too far down the field. And the very next play, Justin Herbert throws an interception. Just a bad throw. In that situation, Jared Cook is open, and he needs to put that ball only where Jared Cook can get it. It needs to either be a touchdown or incompletion. He throws it short. Patrick Surtain's right there, interception. And then the Broncos drive down the field, and Tavon Campbell was exposed on this series. They have a 3rd and 7. Cortland Sutton beats him on an out route. Tavon Campbell should break that pass up every time. 3rd and 10. They get beat on the screen. It looked like Drew Tranquill was in man coverage there, and just got caught up with the offensive lineman. And Javonte Williams broke free. That was a tough conversion. And then they have a 3rd and goal from the 2. Or I guess before that. So after the screen pass, this is the big play of the drive, the 42-yarder. Javonte Williams has a swing pattern. I mean, they have it bottled up. Kaiser's there, and then Tavon Campbell's on the edge, and he has a chance to make a play there. And Williams gets by him down the sideline. Just an inexcusable play there from the Chargers cornerback. That sets him up with goal to go. They stuffed the run twice. I guess, Melvin Gordon gained 8 yards in that first round. Then they stuff a run from the 1. And then Joey Bosa reads the play beautifully and sees the boot coming, and he has a sack and just misses the tackle. And Teddy Bridgewater is able to escape, and he finds Eric Sobert for the touchdown. That makes it 21-7. Next possession, you have the pick 6. Austin Eckler, That's a drop from him. I know it's a little bit behind him. Herbert thought he was going to stop on the route. Uh, Eckler sort of kept going. A little miscommunication. It's slightly behind him, goes off his hand. Surtain picks it. And that's all she wrote. You know, I know the Chargers scored a touchdown on the next drive, but that pick six was the end of the game. So, I mean, listen, here's where it's at. Chargers do not have the depth right now. I think they're a year away from contending from a Super Bowl. I've been saying that all along. I predicted 9-8 after the 4-1 start. People in this chat were telling me I was crazy, asking if I was going to back down from my prediction. I never did, because I didn't think that they had the depth to produce the kind of record that the 4-1 start indicated. You know, Brandon Staley likes to talk about illusions, right? Illusions. Lots of illusions in the NFL. Well, that 4-1 start was an illusion. The truth is they don't have the depth to contend for a Super Bowl. They don't have the depth in the offensive line. I said from the get-go that if their offensive line stayed healthy, they had a shot. Their offensive line has not stayed healthy, and they don't have the depth. And it's inexcusable for a team to have two starting guards that are effectively signed off the street. Calamete was signed from a practice squad, and Schofield was signed off the street when you really haven't been that injured. You lost one offensive lineman in right guard, Odeabushi. Matt Filer misses a game, and all of a sudden you have two guys off the street starting for a guard. That's a distinct lack of depth. That falls on Tom Telesco for ignoring the offensive line year after year after year after year. He has not put the necessary resources into it over the course of time. I know he did this past offseason with the free agent signings and drafting Rashawn Slater, but over the course of his tenure as general manager, he has not put enough resources into it, and that's how you end up with this kind of depth. Brendan James was a pick in the 5th round. That was where they went with their depth. They could have taken a lineman in the 3rd round instead of taking Josh Palmer. They could have taken him in the 3rd round instead of taking Trey McKitty. They decided not to. They went with Jameis in the 5th round. He's not ready to play. And Brandon Staley is putting his foot down. He's saying, listen, I'm not playing this guy until he's ready to go. And so they don't think Brendan Jameis is ready, and they're not playing him. So what do you end up with? You end up with Michael Schofield signed off the street in September, and you end up with Senio Calamete, who was on a practice squad until October. And what happens? 10 hits, 3 sacks, and an offensive game plan blown to pieces by pressure. And it goes down the list, right? This roster does not have depth, period. Pretty much anywhere. They don't have a second running back. I looked at the stats. It's 275 yards from scrimmage for the running backs not named Austin Eckler on 72 touches this year. That's 3.8 yards per touch, and 75 of those yards came on one run from Justin Jackson. You take that 75-yard run away, it's 2.8 yards per touch. So they don't have talent at running back. They don't have the depth at corner. I went back and looked. The last time they took an outside cornerback before Asante Samuel Jr. at any point in the draft was 2015. The OG fans will know Craig Mager. Who's that? I don't know. So what do you end up with? Michael Davis, undrafted free agent, has developed nicely, right? Inconsistent. Your best cornerback has been assigned to Samuel Jr. You have one injury at corner, and what do you have to do? You have to put Tavon Campbell in there. I thought he looked like he was improving early in the season, but right now he's making too many mistakes. He does not look like anywhere close to a starting corner in the NFL. You sign an aging Chris Harris to a deal, thinking he's going to give you inside-outside flexibility. What is he giving you? Certainly not inside-outside flexibility because he's not playing on the outside right now. He's only playing in the slot. And that forces you to put Tavon Campbell out there. What happens with Tavon Campbell? He misses tackles. He gets beaten coverage because he's not a fourth cornerback on a team, so they don't have the depth there. I mean, you can go down the list early in the season, right? Getting gashed by the run because you don't have the talent up front. Today, they were okay against the run. 147 yards on 33 carries. I don't think that's anything to write home about, especially when your third down defense has been atrocious. I mean, Chargers allowed the Broncos to go 8 of 11 on third down. They're 31st in the league in third down. It's depth. It's a depth issue, okay? And that falls on the front office, falls on the general manager, period. The early part of the season set these expectations sky high, but this team is not deep enough at this point with the injuries that they have to be a Super Bowl contender. Now, will they make the playoffs? I think they could make the playoffs, right? But this is a process here, and Brandon Staley has to build this team in his image, and they have to build out the depth. And I think that showed up tonight, both in their cornerback play with Tavon Campbell and then obviously in terms of their offensive line. Now, we look at this offensive inconsistency. It's an issue. The buck stops with Joe Lombardi as offensive coordinator. It's not getting enough consistency right now. It's a massive issue. And you can go check this out in my takeaways, but it's every step forward is followed by an emphatic step backward. They have not strung together 2 games in a row with a positive EPA per drive since that 4-1 start. And it's these volatile swings where they go out and they put up an incredible performance like against the Steelers and they come back with inconsistencies. And it's the same issues. You can't pin it on one thing, but it's a number of things. It's protection breakdowns at inopportune times. 2 of those sacks derailed drives. It's either poor decisions or bad throws from Justin Herbert. That's been happening in these losses. Sometimes a result of pressure, right? It's penalties. Today, penalties were a huge issue. 6 offensive penalties, 3 of them were holding calls. And then obviously the ineligible man downfield penalty that we talked about. They are struggling behind this offensive line to run the ball efficiently. They're not getting production out of the second running back, right? All these things are a problem, and it's leading to these swings offensively where they're just not finding that consistency. It's in there. They can be an elite offense. But the concerning part of all of this, right, is that these inconsistencies are tending to happen against really good defensive coaches. I don't think it's as simple as saying they're getting out coached because a lot of this is execution stuff. Okay. But the buck stops with the coaching staff and the play caller. Ultimately, it's on them, and they would tell you that. So you go up against the Ravens, Wink Martindale. They don't really have a good defense, but the Chargers struggle. You go up against Bill Belichick, the Chargers struggle. You go up against Mike Zimmer, the Chargers struggle. You go up against Vic Fangio, the Chargers struggle. It's in there. The efficient, explosive offense is in there. We've seen it. It's just not consistent enough right now, and it's hard to see it improving in consistency with the injuries that they have up front. Defense left a lot of plays out there today. We talked about a bunch of them. The Joey Bosa sack that he missed on that final Broncos touchdown drive was obviously a big one. They had 3rd and 7 and 3rd and 10 on that same drive. They weren't able to get off the field. Luck is a little bit of an issue here. They didn't get the call on the Derwin James forced fumble. They didn't get the call on the Joey Bosa forced fumble, but they left a lot of plays out there. The 3rd and goal from the 9-play call was a bad play call that allowed them to pretty much walk in on a shotgun run. And then, Teddy Bridgewater should not be scrambling for an 11-yard touchdown on him. Just shouldn't be happening. With all that being said, I thought Derwin played an excellent game. To me, he's an all-pro, and I'll continue beating that drum until the season's over. He should be comeback player of the year, I think. It'll probably go to Dak Prescott, but Derwin James has been incredible this year. And he's a big reason why the Chargers are even playing, decent defense at times. He's making enormous plays week after week after week after week. So, that it's some of the same stuff we've been talking about, guys. And as you get later into an NFL season, the issues become more apparent because you have a bigger sample size and you can see the flaws in the team. And the flaws in this team right now are depth and on offense, consistency, and it's all kind of related. But depth on offense, it's consistency, right? You could really talk about inconsistency on both sides of the ball. And then they're just not making enough plays in key spots defensively. You can go back to these losses. That Vikings game, they had a bunch of opportunities to get off the field in that final drive, and it's become a big issue of just not making plays when they need to make plays, and a lot of that comes down to the third down defense, which just hasn't been good enough. You can't be 31st in third down defense and expect to be a Super Bowl contender. So a lot of work to do for this team. Let's do questions. Do I think Tillery is making this run defense worse? And also, do you think he should be a situational player? If they had more defensive line depth, then he would be a rotational guy that would come in pass rushing situations, but they don't have enough depth. So I know those undrafted guys played well and they showed up in that Steelers game, but you can't expect that level of play week after week after week after week. Now I'm curious to see we'll see what the snap counts looked like. It seemed like Jerry was out there a bunch. The hope with him is that you have this athletic specimen who has all the measurables and should be a great player, both as a pass rusher and as a run defender. And they're hoping that shows up, and they're playing the more talented player right now. But Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. At some point, it's like, okay, if Joe Gaziano and Braden Fajoko, and Fajoko played a bunch in this game because Linval Joseph was out, but if Joe Gaziano is going to give you more, may not be the athletic specimen, but if he's going to give you a more consistent presence, then why don't you go with him? So we'll see. Joey Bosa's not overpaid. He left some plays out there today, but he's still a very, very good player. He's not overpaid. You have to pay that for elite edge rushers, and Joey Bosa is still a premium edge rusher. I mean, he wrecked that Steelers game. You guys have short memories. Like you got to take the season as a whole. He's still an elite player. Getting torched by a field position every game, special teams is awful. That's another part of it. I wrote about it in my takeaways. They don't have enough experience with special teams, and that's showing up too. Now, I don't think the special teams had a god awful day today. The missed field goal comes back to bite you. Um, it hasn't been as bad as some of their other performances, but I mean, they have the worst special teams in the league. That's where they're ranked, and that's not a mistake. Yeah, thoughts on having so many offensive drops? I don't know, man. It's really, really bizarre. Now we asked Joe Lombardi about it, a week or two ago, and he used an analogy like, sometimes, yeah, how long has everyone been drinking water, right? And how many times do you accidentally let water go down the wrong pipe? You know, that's what he compared it to. But the sample size is growing, and the Chargers are continuing to drop balls. So at what point is it not just an aberration? And so you're going to get the same answer from the coaching staff when we ask them. It's an aberration. It's an aberration. It's an aberration. I don't have a good answer for you, but the sample size is big enough now where it's like, okay, this is a thing. The Chargers drop balls. They've been doing it all season. They entered this game second in the league in drops, and I mean, we'll see how they're officially graded by PFF because that's what I use to total the drops, but they could have as many as 6 drops from this game. It has nothing. I don't think it has anything to do with the amount of mustard on Herbert's throws. I asked about it, and Staley pretty much laughed me off the Zoom. Yeah, I don't really buy that theory. These are professional football players. Like it's not like and it's not like these guys haven't been playing with Justin. Like they've been playing with Justin now for 2 seasons. Like it comes down to catching the damn football. Like catch the football. Austin said it today. Catch the football. If you have your hands on the ball, catch the football. Which running back two can possibly step up? Like I want to see more Joshua Kelly. Like I don't know what you guys think, but Larry Roundtree, Darius Bradwell, they don't do it for me. Justin Jackson, I think, is an exciting player, good change of pace, does everything well, but he can't stay healthy. So, Joshua Kelly has some juice. I mean, he freaking hurdled a guy today. And I know he can be inconsistent in pass protection. That's why he's not playing, and that's a big deal. But like you need some juice there. You need a guy that can, get after people, run with some physicality, have some athleticism. Like I feel like Joshua Kelly has that. Find a way to get him the football in space, right? I mean, you're looking for this running back too, and you're basically giving Joshua Kelly 2 to 3 touches a game every other game. No way for him to get in a rhythm that way, right? Like you're searching here. You're searching here, and you're finding nothing. And you have a guy on the roster who's 4.47 and has shown that he can be explosive if you get him the ball in space. That's where I would turn. I don't think there's any great solution because it's hard to put a running back out there who is not trustworthy in pass protection, but you need something there. You can't keep putting Austin Eckler on the field for 70+% of the snaps because he's going to break down. He would tell you that. He said it before the season. He's like, I need somebody to step up here because I'm not at my size. I can't play that much. I can't beat Derrick Henry. I mean, hell, even Nick Chubb, who's a big back, has Kareem Hunt behind him so he doesn't wither away and get run down, have his body break down. So you got to find somebody and like spend a 4th-round pick on Joshua Kelly. I know it wasn't this coaching staff, but to me, I mean, Larry Roundtree doesn't give me much as a running back. If you're not particularly fast, and he isn't, you better be super physical and you better have great vision. And I've seen some physicality out of him, but the vision isn't there. I've seen him miss a ton of holes this year that would have led to big gains. And to me, get Joshua Kelly some touches and see what he can do for you. Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, I don't think any of the running backs would have been successful today behind that interior. Corey Linsley aside, I think he's still playing at a high level, but the two guards, you know. With that being said, they need to find somebody, and Joshua Kelly has a ton of talent. Do you think Telesco's in the hot seat? No, he's not. He hit on Herbert. I've told you guys this. He hit on Herbert. He's safe. That's it. So someone says, is Quisenberry not better than the off the street offensive guards? He's really a center. The way they view him is he can play guard in a pinch. But his position's really center. But I don't know why they wouldn't play Quisenberry over Senio Calamete because I don't know. Like this is what blows my mind, right? You sign this guy's on the practice squad for a reason. You sign him because he has experience. Experience, great. He's played in the NFL, but he hasn't been good recently. And you throw him out there and expect what? What are you expecting? Like, am I crazy? Like, what are you expecting? That he's going to go out there and have a great game? So I don't know. I mean, it's pretty clear to me the way Staley has answered my questions about Brendan Hymas this season. He is determined to make sure this guy is ready before he plays. They don't want to put him out there at guard, which is a position that's relatively foreign to him. He hasn't played it since high school. He was a tackle all throughout college. They don't want to put him in at guard and have him get abused and sort of derail his development, which I can understand. I mean, we can all agree on one thing. The Chargers development of offensive linemen in Tom Telesco's tenure has been abysmal. They have not been able to produce offensive linemen. And I'm not giving him credit for Rashawn Slater because he was plug and play. That has nothing to do with their development. I mean, he was ready to go from day one. Okay. They have not developed offensive linemen. So if Brandon Staley is going to have a different approach to developing offensive linemen, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because whatever the Chargers have done previously has not worked. So if they feel like let's give this guy as much time as he needs to get ready before we throw him in there, let's see if it works. In the meantime, though, you're lacking depth, and I don't put that on the coaching staff. Brandon Staley got hired in January. Tom Telesco got hired in 2013. And you can go read my stuff. Like go check out my articles from my time covering the Chargers. I've written about this at length. I've written about how he could have built a better offensive line. Like go find those stories. They're in there. This has been a long process. And so this is year one of Brandon Staley's vision. So he's taken a bunch of players for the most part, besides his draft picks and the guys they signed in free agency, and trying to mold this in his image. It's going to take time for him to get the players that he wants in here to really build this thing the way that he wants to build it. What do we have a Telesco argument going on in the chat, or are these questions? I don't mind some good banter. I will say this: the chat is fantastic after I banned all of those losers the other night. Does it carry over from stream to stream? I have no idea. You tell me. Thomas Martinez is a great point. The Patriots went 5-11 in Belichick's first year. Yeah. Only one first-year coach has ever been to a Super Bowl. That was Jim Caldwell. And first-year coaches, rookie first-year coaches, right, have a 447 winning percentage since 2008. So it's not like new coaches come in and find success immediately. I know that some of the recent first-year head coaches that have come in and hit the ground running might skew your thoughts on how it should look. But the Chargers are 6-5 and they're in the playoff hunt. I don't know how many of you guys were in at our casual hops with pop earlier this week from the living room couch, but just try and keep it in perspective. I know you guys get emotional after games, and that's why I'm here. But 6-5, still in the playoff hunt. Some work to do. Probably not a Super Bowl contender, but hell, you're playing meaningful games in December. Like, there's a big game next week at the Bengals. Like, that's a big game in December. So that's different than what's happened the past 2 seasons. That's the positive you can take out of this. And I just want everyone to know that I'm very much enjoying my course. Very much enjoying it. Yeah. Gregory asked a good question. What's the difference between them? How is it so night and day? How can you explain the Chargers being so good and so bad? I think some of it is the defensive coaches that they're going up against, right? I think that's part of it. You look at that Steelers game, the Steelers were missing 3 of their best players. You know, a Steelers defense without TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Joe Hayden is a much different Steelers defense. They go up against the Eagles, and pretty much every competent quarterback in the NFL has shredded that defense. So I think that's part of it. Game script has been part of it too, you know, falling behind early in some of these games. But, it's really hard to explain. It's hard for me to sit here and say, this is the reason that they're inconsistent. I think players are human beings, coaches are human beings. You have good games and you have bad games. Um, you know, and the way to avoid bad games is by having more depth and better overall talent. And, when you go through some injuries and you have some weak points playing meaningful snaps, you end up with inconsistencies, right? Today it was offensive line. It's been a couple games with Tavon Campbell. Early in the season, it was defensive line, not having Justin Jones. You have a second-year quarterback who still hasn't made 30 starts in the league, and he's going to have ups and downs. He's still a superstar. He's still going to be a top 5 quarterback in this league, but he's going to have ups and downs. He's going to make some mistakes. I mean, hell, he's never thrown 3 interceptions in a game. He's a legit stud, but he's going to have ups and downs, especially when the protection is breaking down. So, I don't think you can sit here and come up with a single reason why there's inconsistencies. Every team has inconsistencies. For the Chargers this year, I think it's been pretty glaring over this recent 6-game stretch, particularly. Do you feel like Herbert gets locked in on Keenan in those 4th-down plays? Yeah, he does. And I wrote a big feature about their connection. You can go read it. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that Justin is looking for Keenan because he's the best receiver on the team, and he's pretty much always open. So I don't think it's a bad thing that he's locking in on a receiver, but it is a balance, right? It is a balance, and I think Justin Herbert is trying to negotiate that balance, trying to figure out what is the right balance. But I think the way Justin views it from my conversations with him is, I'd rather go down throwing it to my best guy than anyone else. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because Keenan Allen has made some really, really big plays this year. He was one-on-one on that fourth down. I don't think he was necessarily open. Was it a drop? Was it a pass breakup? Could it have been put in a better spot? Maybe. But as Justin grows, I think he's maybe sees that in the future. He's like, all right, Keenan's, covered tightly. It's fourth down. Let me check my check down. Maybe he makes a better decision in that situation, right? But I don't think, I think when they get into their offensive meetings, I don't think it's Justin, how could you make this decision? I think what Justin is saying is, listen, I'm going to 13. I'm going to go to my best guy on the money downs, and I trust that he's going to make a play. And more times than not, he is going to make a play. And more times than not, he has made a play, right? I think the Chargers started out this season on an unsustainable pace in terms of their fourth downs, and it's come down to earth a little bit, right? That's natural regression. But they're still succeeding on fourth down at a very high clip. So, I think he's trying to find that balance, and it'll take some time. But personally, I don't really hate that strategy because Keenan's going to make a play more times than not. Shout out to my buddies in the chat, Tom, Will, and Brian, joining the stream. Love you guys. Miss you. All right, what else we got? Okay, so everyone keeps asking me about the Monday press conferences. I forgot to ask. I'm sorry, it's not high on my priority list. For some reason, they don't stream them, and a lot of you guys lose your minds. So keep tweeting at me about it, particularly at 12:30 on Wednesday or Thursday. Send me a reminder, and I will ask about it. You think Staley would hire Fangio as DC if the Broncos fire him? That's an interesting question. No, because Fangio would get a DC job for a offensive head coach where he could coordinate the defense. If he was coaching for the Chargers, he wouldn't be coordinating the defense because that's Staley's responsibility. Is Mike Williams getting re-signed? To be determined. My guess is he's going to command a pretty sizable market. The Chargers drafted Josh Palmer to replace him. Palmer is progressing nicely. He can fill that X spot. They could franchise tag him, but that's a decent amount of money. They have the space to do it. It sort of depends on how he finishes out this season. I think the franchise tag is more on the table than a long-term extension. But I could also see them letting him walk just based on his market and the fact that they have a replacement on the roster. So we'll see. I'll say this again. We have all off season to get into free agency and to get into the draft and all that stuff. Let's wait till the off season. For now, let's talk about what's happening. The Chargers are playing meaningful games in December. Let's talk about this year's Chargers. And trust me, you can ask everyone that's been watching these streams for a while, that's been reading me. I cover everything about the offseason, and I promise you we will get deep into the weeds about all that stuff. But right now, let's talk Chargers football. When is Linval coming back? So the earliest Linval can come back is 10 days, which I believe is Thursday. Wait. It might be later than that. When did he get placed? Hold on one second. Yes, Thursday. So Linval is eligible to be activated at the earliest on Thursday, but because he's unvaccinated, the protocols are more stringent. Um, so it would depend on negative tests. So my guess is he's back, but that's just speculation. So I don't know for sure. But Thursday would be the earliest he can be activated. Tom, 9-8. I don't think 9-8 gets you in. What do you think? How did Forrest Merrill impress? Forrest Merrill was not active today. He's on the practice squad and was not activated. Yeah, I think you're gonna have to get the 10 wins in the AFC. That's where I'm at with it. Yeah, I'm with Chris. Chris O'Connor says 10-7 minimum with help. I think that's where I'm at with it. Is Brian Bulaga coming back? I'm not convinced that he's going to be back this season. Kenneth Murray was active, but Gil, and Jeff were talking about this in the press box. I don't think he played more than 5 snaps in the game, which could be injury related because he tweaked that ankle. Certainly a possibility. Um, I think part of it is that Drew and Kaiser are the better linebacker duo at this point. But if you really only, I mean, I only saw him out there for a handful of snaps. So, I'll send out the snap counts tomorrow morning. But my guess is if he played that sparingly, it's probably injury related. But I think part of it is too that they trust Drew more out there. All right, we'll do 2 more questions. Do the Chargers need more from Nuosu? I'd love to see more consistency from him. Like I feel like he can be a player, like a game-changing player, game to game to game, but it feels like he'll flash for 2 games and then he'll have a quiet couple games. And it goes back to the conversation we were having before about consistency. I think he's gonna ultimately sign a contract extension because I feel like he's played decent football this year. Um, but I feel like he has the skill set to be a real influential player every single game. And sometimes he just disappears. And I don't see that flash from him as much as I would like to. Um, so do they need more from him? I don't know if it's more as much as it is a level of consistency that he has not shown in his Chargers career. Zanley asked about the drops. You can watch the recap. We talked about the drops already. What's the point of Easton Stick? It's a great question. I'm not exactly sure. When is Matt Filer back? I think he's expected to be back next week, but we'll see it out of practice. Do we have a second 16 ounce in the queue for the post stream? No, I didn't. I didn't get a second one, and I'm regretting it because I'm almost done with this one. Do I think Asante comes back this year? So, if they felt like it was going to be a season-ending injury, then they probably would have placed him on IR. So that might be a good thing. We'll sort of see what happens there. If he does come back, I wouldn't expect it to be until much later in the season. Like, I don't think you can mess around with 3 concussions in a 4-month period. That's career threatening. So, my guess is they're going to take it slow. I don't know if they're going to place him in IR. I'm sure they're just sort of feeling it out and seeing how he responds and all that sort of stuff. I would be really reticent about putting him back out there, considering he's already had 2 concussions, and this guy is a real important part of your long-term future. You know, Obviously, his well-being as a human being is number one priority. But strictly from a football perspective, like, you want this guy to be your top cornerback for years to come. If he suffers another concussion this season, you're talking about a potentially career-threatening situation. So, yeah, 2 concussions. I'm saying if there was a third, like if he came back and suffered another one, like worst case scenario type thing. All right, let's call it there. Wrapping it up, Chargers lose to the Broncos 28-13. For my full takeaways, in the description below, we are doing a $1 a month deal. It's the best deal we do all year. It's our Black Friday deal. Click the link, you get the deal. You will not get a better deal than this. And on top of that, the deal runs out tomorrow. So you have mere hours left to get into The Athletic and subscribe. Now, I want people in the chat to let everyone know that does not subscribe that it's worth it. Throw some pub in the chat. Let everyone know that doesn't subscribe that this is a good bang for your buck. I know I can rely on you guys for that. So make sure you click that link, subscribe to The Athletic, get my full takeaways. I promise you it's even more in depth than what I do on here, and I'm a better writer than I am talker. So make sure you subscribe. And what we have coming in the coming days. So takeaways are up. We got the final thoughts coming. I'm going to try and get them done tomorrow for you guys. But I got a 3:30 a.m. wake up tomorrow, and I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to have the energy. So best case scenario, they'll be up tomorrow night. Worst case scenario, they'll be up by late afternoon Tuesday, but we'll have the final thoughts. We'll have a film review. We'll have a mailbag. Make sure you're plugged into Twitter. I get my mailbag questions on via Twitter. Seeing some requests for Q&A. Maybe we'll do a Q&A this week. We'll definitely get another one done in the coming weeks if I don't do it this week. And then we are in Cincinnati. That's next week for Chargers at Bengals. Huge game. So appreciate you all very much. And we will talk next week. Follow me on Twitter at Daniel R. Popper. Subscribe to The Athletic. Love you all. Peace out.